This is Power Forward.
Welcome back to Power Forward. Justin White alongside Mateen Cleaves. Mateen, what's going on, my man?
Oh, baby, life is good. I'm flying high, Justin, man. Just happy to be here, baby.
Well, big day, Mateen. Momentous day for us on Power Forward because this is actually episode number 50. So, yeah, how about that? So we thought it was only fitting to bring on somebody who actually is 50 years old. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's not 50. He is, though, Jason Bressler, our Chief Technology Officer here at UWM. And Jason, before I allow you to respond to that good-natured barb, I will tell you that a team member here, somebody actually on your team, kind of instructed me to go that route because they wanted to see how you would react to it.
I appreciate that. I'm assuming that it was Craig, but I am not 50. Thank you very much. And I look very, very good for my age.
I was going to say, you don't look a day over 49 to me. But no, great to have you with us. We're really excited to have you on the podcast. And, in all seriousness, though, you are coming up on a big milestone. In just a couple of months, you're going to be celebrating your 5-year anniversary as the Chief Technology Officer here at UWM. When you think about that it's been 5 years and everything that's happened and all of the technological advancements that the company has made during that time. What thoughts come to mind for you?
It's absolutely insane. I get proud of, what we've accomplished as a team, as a technology team. I'm proud of how fast we grew. 5 years ago, we had 200 people in IT. We're up to just about 1,200 now in a little bit less than 5 years. So, you look at that and that insane and probably a little bit reckless growth that we had. And the fact, even sometimes as a chief technology officer, I've been doing this 25 years and only in the mortgage industry. So to be able to actually take a step back and look at what we've accomplished in that amount of time, which to me seems like it was yesterday, to be honest with you, it's just nuts. I love it.
And I'm sure we got people that's out there saying, wait a minute, this is mortgages, technology. How does the two go together? So explain that a little bit, Jason.
Well, technology drives everything everywhere. Not even in just mortgages, it drives it everywhere. But here specifically, we really are a technology company. We're a technology team. Everything we do is really centered around all of that as the backbone. Everything here is built in-house and it supports everybody in-house. And then everything that we create and build and support for the entire broker community. Everything's tech. Everything's tech. But
it wasn't always that way. And I know that even when you first came to the company, it wasn't in the same place that it is now. And obviously, with the company going public and Matt saying, multiple times, repeatedly, that there is going to continue to be this heavy investment in technology. When you look at the process, of getting to this point and the fact that now our IT team is seen as a group of innovators, a group of solutionists. How do you kind of put it all into perspective based on kind of where things were when you first came to the company?
It took a really long time a very long time, yet also a very short time to really get there. When I started, we basically, from a technology standpoint, we had almost nothing. We had nothing in place. We had already grown really quickly. And it was just all of it, to be honest, was done just because we had such good people that cared so much about Matt and the company and what we were actually doing, but there was no structure around any of it. And so we had to start really from the bottom. We had to put in different processes and procedures, and I had to change almost everybody's titles. We had to set up different matrix models. And then we got to a point where I would literally change our organizational structure and our processes and procedures maybe every 4 to 8 months. It was that often. And it was a jarring shift for everybody in IT, and it was very difficult. And, but the thing is, we just kept plugging along. It was the only thing that I'm good at, because now at this point, everybody that works in IT is smarter than me. So the only thing that I'm actually good at is being able to see the forest for the trees. And so I knew where I wanted to go. I knew we had the right people. We had the right investment, and so we just kind of never deviated off the game plan. It was just, you got to focus on the process, keep moving. And eventually we got there. And then we started changing from being just order takers and having people come in and tell us this is what you're going to do to actually going back and saying, this is what we think we should do, to actually then turning into really trying to innovate and say, hey, let's just try, something totally different and crazy and off the wall and see where that can kind of take us.
Wow. And you mentioned something that kind of caught my attention, because you are IT, you run everything. You got everybody kind of report up to you in IT. You said there are people in IT smarter than you. Okay. Can you kind of expand on that? They're smarter than you.
Man, everybody's smarter than me, Mateen. The thing is, it's like it's so technology, and I say this a lot, and we're almost a team inside, like we're a company inside of UWM almost. And the reason that I say that all the time is because there's 10 different verticals or siloed teams that have to work together all the time in unison in order just to row the boat even slowly. And so, you realize after a while, there's no possible way you can do everything yourself. And so I took this one piece on me, and I went out and I just I found people inside, and then I recruited from the outside, and I did it all myself. Like, I'd find people on LinkedIn, I'd take people's recommendations, I'd call people myself, I'd take them out to dinner, I'd tell them what I wanted to build. And eventually, I'd empower all those people to start doing it. And eventually they'd start finding smarter people. And so, as time went on, I just realized, I'm like, hey, now I'm a not 50-year-old man looking around at a lot of people that are much, much smarter than me. And it's fantastic. Now I just got to manage the people, right? Like, that's all I got to do, and try to not to look my age, apparently. So,
man, you're not going to let me forget that one. By the way, it was not Craig. It was not Craig. I'm gonna leave it to you though to go and find out who it was.
I appreciate that. I do control all the information, so I could probably find out pretty quickly.
Speaking of information, our crack research staff, which consists of myself and Mateen, tells me that you have a degree in secondary education. So IT and mortgages was not always the path that you were going to pursue. Tell us about that.
So, I went to school to be an English language and literature major for secondary education. And so I did it up in Eastern Michigan. And when I did my student teaching, and obviously that's right at the end of the program, I realized I do not want to be a teacher anymore. And so, and I think that's, sometimes kind of a common thing. And I ended up getting a job in the mortgage industry. I lived out here, and it made a lot of sense for me to do that. Everybody was doing it. And I was an underwriter, and, just like everybody else, you transfer around a little bit. And I wound up at a company that was just getting off the ground. This mortgage company that was just getting off the ground. It had invested a couple $1 million into what it was trying to build, and then burned through that money very quickly. And I happened to be the first employee there. I liked computers a little bit. And so when we ran out of money, the owner said, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, you know what? I kind of like the computers. And we had built up a couple of servers, nothing really big. And, he was like, "Great, it's yours." So I am 100% homegrown. I have no degree in computer science. I'm huge on, just diving into the deep end of the pool and figuring it out. The story that I like to tell the most is, the way that I really started was I sat in a server room, and servers crashed. And this was back in 97 and 98. And, server goes down. At the time, you could call Microsoft for $250, and it was my money, and that was probably as much as I was making in a month at the time. And if you actually get on and open up a ticket, they are not allowed to hang up the phone until you are completely satisfied. So I would call, I'd say, "Hey, the server, it's crashed, help me." And they would walk me through the steps, and I would literally write notes on everything and come back up, and they would say, "Okay, Mr. Bressler, are you set now?" And I would push the entire thing over. And I'd say, "You're not going to believe this, but this server just crashed again. I need to do this, but don't tell me what to do. Just tell me if I'm making any mistakes here." And I would do that over and over and over with every type of different kind of technology. And eventually I just got to a place where I felt like, I was omnipotent, I knew everything, and I could, and that's it. I just kind of grew it that way.
Wow. Now that's impressive. Now that's a perfect example of a winner is going to find a way to win no matter what. I really love that story. But let me take you back a little bit because you mentioned secondary, education. And what was it, that you said, this is not for me? What was it? Because you have certain people that go to school for things or and they get stuck in that lane because, okay, this is what I have to do. But you pivoted. What was it, Jason?
The thing is, I wanted to be a teacher because I really do like mentoring and molding and all of that. But I realized, especially when I did my student teaching, and it was middle school in Ypsilanti, and I realized I am way too hyper and energetic and passionate about what I do to be able to stop and try to get people just to sit down and listen to me in the first place and deal with things like that. I'm like, I knew that, I knew right then. I was 22 years old. I'm like, there is no way I could do this for the rest of my life. It will crush my soul just to have to get all these small things in place in order to do what I wanted to do, in the big picture, which was actually teach.
What about leadership? Did you always seek to ascend to a position of leading people, or was that something that just kind of evolved over time during your career?
I was awful at it for a very long time. When even at that company that I was at, as we grew, like a lot of people do, when they get not into just this field, but leaders do in general, is I did everything until the point that I was going to break, and then I'd hire one person, and then I wouldn't train that person. I didn't have time for that. I was still doing all of the day-to-day tasks of everything else, and I get a few other people, and I was always short, and I was always angry and running around, and it took a long time for me to actually pull myself out and, say, hey, either I'm going to be an actual leader, I'm going to be a chief information officer, a chief technology officer, and then have other people do all these things and actually work with them, or I'm just going to have to be that guy that does it forever. And I could go either way. And I ended up, really wanting to see if I could be a leader.
What was one of the biggest mistakes you made in leadership?
I think the number one thing that I used to do all the time was, and nobody ever likes this, is just pure micromanagement. I would give a task to somebody, and this is especially when you have a smaller team. I give a task to somebody, and then every 5 minutes I'd follow up. Did you do it this way? Is it done? How are you doing it? And that doesn't breed anything good ever, and you see people do that all the time, where they just want to make sure that everything gets done the right way, but nobody wants, a blanket on top of them, 100% of the time when it's, 230 degrees outside. And so I feel like I used to do that a lot until I realized it just doesn't make sense to do it.
Justin, let me follow up with that real quick, because I know you want to get in, but now, is there a balance that you have to have? Because I think you not micromanage, but you have to be involved, to keep everything going. But how do you find that balance to, encouraging them, keeping them going, being involved, but where it don't come off as you're micromanaging?
Yeah. So what I'm really big on, especially now, I'm really big on empowerment and empowerment leadership. And so one of the best ways to do that is, so I tend to be a very, very, very transparent person. I tell everybody what is awful about me as a leader, as a person. I like to try to tell them the things that are good about me too. But, I feel like that kind of, it lends itself to a certain level of trust. And, if I got to be the first person to say, this is where I'm not good, and, be vulnerable with that, when you start empowering people, it gives them the understanding that you actually care about them and the project. And so what I would do is I would say, hey, all right, I need you to run with this, but I need to hold you accountable too. So in my head, this takes 2.5 weeks. Tell me what you think. And then it started to switch, where I would let them say, hey, I think this will take me this amount of time. And I would say, all right, here's the deal. You need to come with me if you need help. If you have questions, I'm here for you, but we're going to check in once a week, but I'm going to hold you really accountable to the date to the date that you told me. And if you hit it, I'm going to start giving you a little bit more. If you can't, I'm going to pull it back a little bit, and then we'll work on what didn't go right for you that first time. And so the more that you can do that, and I get it, it takes time, and it's a long play to be able to build that team environment and that empowerment like that. But the more that you can do that, the more you really shift that pendulum from the micromanagement to the pure delegation, where then you can actually be a leader, and then not have to worry about all that other stuff.
To drill down on that a bit further, Jason, I remember a couple of years ago working on you with an award that we were submitting for you. And one of the questions associated with the submission was, what is the secret to your success? And I have it right here. You said it's communication and active listening. As a leader of such a large group, how do those two things play into your success on a daily basis?
So in the spirit of transparency, what I started doing is I do it to this day is, so every Friday I record a video, I send it out to all of IT. I include in that video, like a shout out of community and, certain things that maybe all of IT needs to know. But then also I include our IT senior leadership report that's only meant for like me and the SVPs and other VPs running IT, and I send it out to all of IT. And so I want to make sure from a communication standpoint, everybody understands what we're doing all the time, because the second part of that is when you feel like you're part of a team, and that's only one small part of it, but when you feel like you're part of a team, you get a certain type of attachment to that, and you're willing to see it through the good times and the bad times, but more importantly, you're willing to raise your hand and question the why in a whole bunch of different things, because it's created at least a decent level of safe space. And that's where active listening comes in. And, if you can't tell already, I'm ridiculously energetic, which means I probably have ADD and I can't keep my mind straight for more than 5 seconds. And so I did get, super deliberate. And as people came in and talked to me, that I paid attention, I got exactly what they wanted to say out of that. And then I started acting off of it. And that's what really drove things and drove the whole family feel that we really got inside of IT. Like everybody says that, they're a family and, all these other companies do that, and that's great, but we actually are, because the more that we empower people to run with their own ideas, the more part of the team and the family they feel with all of that. That's where that different type of attachment comes. And that's, and that was part of the long play. The more that you can create and foster that, and that active listening and communication, the bigger dividends it's going to end up paying for you in the long run.
I like that, Jason. And you mentioned something as far as you said, question the why. And we have some listeners out here. I'm sure some leaders that say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to do it my way or the highway. Okay. How important is it for a leader to allow your team members to question the why and not take it personal when they question the why?
Yeah. And that's the thing is that, I think if you admit first and foremost that you do not know everything, and secondly, that you don't have to know everything as a leader. Like so many leaders think they have to have all the answers. They have to be an expert in everything. None of that is true, right? And so, one of the easiest ways to do it, to allow people to even question the why, is, like walk into a conference room, sit down, like you may know in your head exactly where you want this project to go, or, this theory or this process. But if you sit down and you say something at a very high level, I think we need to paint this wall red, let's say. And, there's a couple of different ways that I think that we could do it. And then you start, and instead of saying, this is what I think we should do, now what do you think? You just sit down and say, hey, here's our end goal. How do we get there? And you start asking people as they go around. Now, 3 out of the 4 people may say things that you already know, and that's exactly what you were thinking. But that 4th person picks something, they say something, and you're like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And you add it at the end to where you're thinking and what you want to do. And then again, people start to feel really comfortable in voicing their own opinions because they hear that you're listening to them, and then repeating it back in how you're going to move forward, basically.
One thing that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, Jason, when it comes to both assembling a team and then running a successful, cohesive unit, is how you have to know that everybody on your team is motivated by something different. Like a coach in sports, like you can't coach everybody on the team the same way. It's just not going to work that way. For you, leading such a large team, how do you approach that? Kind of really trying to find out with your leaders what motivates them, and then encouraging them to do the same with the people on their teams.
So, in an organization our size of 1,200 people, so I got to focus first on, I take 2 different approaches. The first is I got to focus on the people that work directly for me. And I got to build not a relationship, but you got to build a friendship. You got to get to the place again where when you start with transparency, and this is not a dictatorship, that it's a partnership. So if you're running, application development, I'm not going to tell you what you should be doing every day. We should be talking about it together, but you're actually running it, right? And so the more that starts, the more you can start saying, as you start to get that give and take, you start to understand, at least at a high level, what motivates people. But at the friendship level, go out to dinner, grab a beer, doesn't really matter what it is. You start to focus on a little bit more of what people are saying as part of the active listening, and then just asking them like, hey, it sounds like, you love the fact that, you get to create this team and this product, and that drives you. Is that really what motivates you? Is it the true creation of a product? and the more people start to open up about that, the better that it is. Now, the second part of that is I got 117 leaders inside of IT. So that's a lot of people. And so again, at the end of the day, this team is a reflection of me, just like this company is a reflection of Matt. But when I look at IT, everybody here has to make at the end of the day, I'm the one that's responsible for everything. So every Wednesday I do an IT captains meeting, and we talk about some IT stuff, but at the end, it's all about leadership at the end. 100% of it is how you lead different people, different tricks that I use. I have other leaders speak. And even now at this, so everybody at least understands from a leadership aspect of where we are and what motivates me. And I tell them all the time what I'm passionate about and what I want to do, and that you got to find that too. And then now even down to the most molecular level of what we do, I literally, and I started this probably about 3 months ago, I interview every single person before they come into IT. So before we make a final offer, I spend 10 minutes with every single one. I ask them nothing technical. I just want to know who they are as people. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, listen, at the end of the day, I'm going to be working for you just as much as you're going to be working for me. And so I want to make sure that you're comfortable with me and I'm comfortable with you. So I'm just going to ask you, what is it about UWM? And I ask you, and then also, I'm so passionate about what I do. Like, I am the luckiest dude alive to have this job at this company to do all these things. And so, look, I am so passionate about what I do, and you'll see it. Like, I need that to be infectious for you. So I know it could be, personal, professional, doesn't really matter, but tell me something that you are passionate about. And that, off the bat, now I got a connection with that person, right? Like, they're telling me, and you hear the craziest things, because IT people usually are pretty socially awkward, and they're more introverted. They don't want to talk. And some of the things people say, it's unbelievable, the things that they love to do on the side. And then now again, it's like, now I got a better idea of what motivates you and what you love to do and how I can make that fit inside of IT.
Love that, man.
I was getting excited just listening to you talk about it. And I'm not even in IT, but it was getting my adrenaline going. I mean, you're right though. I mean, that builds a connection right from the start. It's like when you ask somebody that question, I mean, that's a very personal question. What are you passionate about? I mean, that just is a great tone setter. Go ahead, Mateen.
No, I'm glad you jumped in on that, because you're 100% right. And me as a leader, I think when I was playing sports, that's when I started to turn the corner, when I know, what approach to take with different people. You got different personalities. You got people that come from all different walks of life. Me as a leader, I had to make that connection. And that's when I started to turn the corner, knowing that you had to take a different approach with different leaders. And you mentioned something that really kind of caught my attention, because you said going out to dinner, maybe grabbing a beer. How does that impact your team differently? Because I know sometimes in the walls of the workplace, it's a little different. But from my experience, sometimes people get outside these walls and the conversation is a lot different. So how important is that for you and important for some of our leaders that's listening?
Oh, it's obviously, it's so incredibly important to get out of work sometimes and be normal, and show a different side of yourself sometimes. The more important thing, I think, at least, for me at this level, is I try to do all of that one-on-one. I try not to take out a large group of people, because then everybody's only getting 5 minutes of me, right? Like, I'm shaking their hand, I get something, and then I got to move on to somebody else. But when it's one-on-one, and I only have to do that maybe, let's say, once every 2 years. I mean, I've got, with 1,200 people, but just to have that connection with me and another leader or another team member makes them feel so incredibly important. And know at the end of the day, it's that reciprocity, that if I took my time out of my life and my day to make sure that I show you, you're so important to me too, and I want to hear about you, dude, at that point, I know that person's going to have my back the same way that I think they'll now know that I have their back in the same way. And so now I can really, you can start to build off of that. That's getting my message out to a whole bunch of people really quickly by doing that. That one dinner, now that that one person can vouch for me and my intent, and the fact that, my passion and my care and all of that for the next 50 people that they talk to for the next 3 months, right? That. I mean, that's why it's so important.
Jason, I know that the one thing that you are extremely passionate about, like all the leaders in our company, is making sure that you're bringing on people that are a good culture fit. But in the world of IT, I think some people would raise an eyebrow to know that you're not necessarily looking for the people with the best skills, the people who are the most technical. Instead, you are looking for the people who are going to be the best fit from a culture standpoint. What has that been like as you've built the team out, as the team has grown? What effect, what impact has that had on not just the team and how tight-knit the team is, but also on the business? Because let's face it, at the end of the day, your job is to keep kind of rowing the boat, like you said, and keep pushing out technological advancements to keep us leading the industry.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I do want technical people. I do want highly technical skill sets for sure. You need it, but it's not the most important thing anymore. And so, even if I took, where we are right now as an IT organization and all the work that we have to do is if I focus on finding the right people who buy into the culture first and foremost, right? Like I can teach anybody anything, not necessarily me, but we can like the people that really care. It's just like anything. If you got it deep inside that, like, you understand what work ethic is and you understand what drive is, and you do not have to be the smartest person in the world, but if it's inside of you, right? If that's part of your culture and I find you and you've got that, I know that tenacity is going to start paying off in the IT world eventually. Like eventually you're going to put your head down, you're going to figure it out. And it pays off in times like this, where there's so much work that needs to get done that when you create that type of bond and that type of culture where everybody kind of feels that way, I don't have to walk around and tell people all the time, hey guys, we got systems down. We got to figure this out and pull together, and we might have to pull like an all-nighter. That never happens because everybody does it on their own. Everybody understands everything that they need to do because they feel the attachment to what we are now. If I go out and I just get a bunch of highly technical people that just want to put their headphones on and be left alone and sit behind a keyboard, they will never, ever, ever, ever do that for me. And that's the thing. It's the secret sauce to all of UWM success. But really, if we focus on ITs, it's the fact that I don't need to go and sell people on what we need to do and when it needs to get done. They intrinsically understand it because I took the time to find the right people. I took the time to find the people that are like me.
Man, I think that's so important, whether it's in business, whether it's in sports. I mean, you see it all the time, even in sports. People see a super talented team and wonder why they can't win. They have so much talent, but they can't win. Or you see, you have people that bring in, folk to their business, and they got these great degrees and they went to these prestigious schools, but they're not people person. They don't relate well. They're negative. They're selfish. So I'm glad you hit on that, Jason, because I think it's super important for leaders and people that, own companies or whatever it is, to bring in the right people. That's so important. Don't just go off talent and people's ability. Now, let me ask you this, because I think as a leader, it's very important, and this is my humble opinion, to find your influencers, okay? To get your influencers on the same page with you, because I think an influencer, they're influencers, okay? We got that part. They can influence in a negative way, or they can influence in a positive way. So am I crazy, or do you feel that it's important to get on the same page with your influencers on your team?
Yeah, it's definitely important. For me personally, I really like to glean as much positivity and negativity from different people, and then figure out how not to use that from a negative standpoint, or how to use it. So like we've all had people that we've worked for, or that we just cannot stand, and so you try to become like a leader, not like them, right? Like those are and yeah, that's important, but it's so much more important to find the people that you want to emulate. And this was one of those things, and everybody says it here, and I totally get it. I just happened to do this in hyperdrive. I remember one day I was sitting here and I went through the first about 2.5 years of my career here. I'm doing all the things as a leader that made me successful, which was, I came in, I set a vision, I told people what to do. I try to talk to them. I hold people highly accountable, but I don't take the time to I never took the time to go out to dinners with people or really sit down and be super transparent or do any of those things. And so what ended up happening was people liked me kind of, but when times got hard and I had to keep shifting and adapting as we grew, nobody had bought into me. And I remember one day I was sitting down and trying to figure out how I was going to make this better. I was at a pretty low point of I thought I was such a good leader. And I'm like, now I don't think I'm doing a good job. And I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to make this work, especially here, and it worked out, here, obviously, but you could use this anywhere, is I'm just going to literally just start watching everything Matt does all the time. And I'm just going to try to copy little things that I think that I can do. And over time, like Matt's ultra positive. I would never have called myself an ultra positive person before, but I just started doing it more and more and more, and started, like everything he would say. And like, every now and then Matt would, this was, a couple of years ago, he'd be like, hey, I think you're doing a great job with this. And I noticed that you're doing that. And I'd always, call him back and be like, I learned it from watching you, Dad. That's it. Like, it's the same thing. Like when you find people like that, like in the business world, if you look at Gary Vee, like that dude is the most pragmatic businessman that like ever existed. I love it. Everything that Gary Vaynerchuk says is, you're like, absolutely. Like that dude's an influencer, but not him personally. Like, I don't really know him, but a lot of the things that he says, I realize, how I try to think, how could I use it here? And how can I get my leaders to understand that that's a great way to think?
The old saying or old adage is, you learn what a person's really about in times of adversity, right? And for all the success that has happened in your time with the company, there have certainly been obstacles. There have been challenges, and I know that a message that you try to get out to your team. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. It's basically embrace the suck, right? Like when things go sideways, don't run away from it. Instead, like dive right in, because that's when your mettle is really tested. That's when you really find out what you're all about and what you're made of. Why is that something that's so important to you?
Well, and like the embrace the suck is slightly different than that. I think the thing is I spent all this time building a certain culture and getting people to see things my way. And so it's IT. It doesn't really matter what you're doing and what you're leading. You're right. Things are going to be very bad. The thing is, if you're a good leader and you can forecast out when like months ahead that things are going to get bad at a certain time, where there's going to be too much work, we're going to have outages, whatever it is, that's when I start telling everybody, like, and again, it takes time. You got to build that leadership capital. You got to get people that are like you and culturally like you and understand that. And so like when I talk about embracing the suck, like I'm doing that right now, I tell people like, hey guys, it is going to suck in about 2 months. And it's going to suck for about 6 of those months after that. So guys, get ready to embrace the suck. When you know that it's going to be bad, it makes it so much easier when it starts. Right? Because you can always take a step back and remind yourself, oh, wait, this is when Jason said it was going to suck. I know it's not going to last forever. Right? And it's like when you can get to places like that, and again, that comes after time. It comes after having battle scars. I'm a guy, so that means that my favorite movie has to be Shawshank Redemption. So, but the thing is I talk all the time about the fact, like, it's right at the end, and sorry if I'm actually ruining it for anybody, but I tell people, like, you gotta, crawl through a mile of crap to come out clean on the other side. Like when that happens and you get there and you know that when times are hard, that you can look to the person on the left and look to the person on the right and know that kind of what you're going to expect, and that person's going to carry you, then it just makes embracing the suck so much easier. And in IT, things suck a lot. Like, that's the thing. We know things are going to go down a lot. That's otherwise we wouldn't have jobs. And so it's really just kind of getting that out and getting people to understand that.
Especially when you know that you're going to get to have that embrace with Andy Dufresne on the beach in Zihuatanejo at the end, right?
Exactly.
I don't think you're ruining that for anybody, Jason. Shawshank is a great movie, and it's a great message too. Because another thing, I guess, somewhat related to this, and I saw you posted a video about this on your social media, is the whole notion of everyone's going to fail, but it's what you learn from those experiences. Because so many high achieving people and people who are in positions of leadership, they have such high standards for themselves that when they fail, it's really hard to get over it. You, though, have a very specific thought process when it comes to failure, and you really think that it's something that can be a positive. Why is that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's just like, admitting your own mistakes and opportunities where, like, you don't know everything. Is you are everybody around you. Like, remember the first time you had to do public speaking, and you're so worried that everybody's paying attention to you and everybody's so critical of what you're doing, and then you go and you sat back down in class and you realized nobody's paying attention to you because you're not paying attention to anybody else that's up there. It's the same thing with failure. It's like everybody around you is going to fail all the time. And so if you're going to take a bunch of time and just wallow in that negativity and think you got to be positive and right all the time, you're fooling yourself. Like, the most successful people fail so much more often than they succeed. It's what they do with the failure, right? I fail. That's what I said. Like, I will fail 50 times today in different things. I'm totally fine with that. I have no issue taking a risk again, because I know if I fail, I'm going to learn from it really quick. I know everybody else around me is failing too, and I'm just going to adjust and keep moving forward. And you have to embrace that fact.
I like that. And how much do you attest to that, to having being strong mentally? Because I think sometimes we get in our own world and we want to have a pity party. And one thing I think people need to understand is no one cares, that things are not going your way. No one cares that you fail. No one cares. So, being strong mentally, how important is that just in life in general?
I mean, it's obviously it's so important. But the thing is, again, it's like admitting the fact that you're not going to be perfect. The thing is Kanye West said, we're all self-conscious. I'm just the first to admit it, right? It's like, I mean, but that's what it is. It's like the first time you take a step back, and it's the transparency and the vulnerability of, like, it was hard for me the first time to tell, 1,200 people, like, hey guys, I am not that great at whatever this is. And I know that you're going to be better, and I'm going to try this, and it may fail. But I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with you failing too. Like, I expect you to. Just don't sit there and do nothing with it. Just get some, and again, it's the same thing. It's like, once you get in that mind space, you can actually create strong-willed people or strong-minded people by being vulnerable as a leader and telling them, hey, I'm going to fail all the time. And if you want, I'll actually tell you all the times that I fail and how I try to change, so that you feel more comfortable when you do it too. That builds a stronger mind for other people.
And listen, ladies and gentlemen, and you jump in this on, just listen to that. You can create that. As a leader, you can put that into people. That's very important. I hope you guys caught that. That's why you're the leader and they're not. It's your position. It's your job to put that into your people, or that you're leading. Okay. So I sorry about that. I had to jump in there, but hopefully I didn't want our listeners to miss that point. Go ahead, Justin.
No, for sure. I mean, and one experience I want to ask you about in particular, Jason, since we just passed the year mark, the anniversary of this, is what it was like for you to have to move the entire company to remote work once COVID hit. Because for those that don't know, we are not a company that had remote work. Not really even hybrid. It was basically everybody here in the office, and I think it was over a weekend, right, that you had to shift the entire company to work from home. Reflecting back a year later, what thoughts come to mind for you?
First of all, it created all types of opportunities for me and for my team. And, I've talked about this in lots of other podcasts, is when we actually did it, it gave IT a new seat at the table in leadership. Instead of business strategy driving everything and saying, this is what we're going to do, figure out a way to support it. It was, Jason, IT, what do you think we should do? And because now we actually have a different level of trust and understanding in you. And, that was great. That's like seizing every opportunity, no matter how difficult it is, and trying to find something positive of it, and then driving forward with whatever it is. To get it done was, to be honest, for me, it was hard, but I did nothing. It was all the smarter people that I hired that actually followed that same type of culture, that work ethic, the drive, the solutioning. I found them and I cultivated that a long time ago, and they found their own people that were like that. And the most proud I have ever been was, when I was told that this was going to happen, I was about to fly out. I turned around, I flew into Michigan, and I walked in on a Saturday, and we had just gotten lunch for people. And I thought maybe there was like 8-9 people working, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And I walked into the back, and there was like 125 people from IT, and everybody had been there. Everybody at that point had been there for almost 24 hours, and nobody was upset. Like, I walked in and they're like, Jason, what's up, man? Good to see you. This is what I'm working on right now. And like, everybody was smelly and eating tacos. But like, it was amazing. It was amazing to see, like, when you take the time again to find the right people and get them to understand you and what drives you. It's the same thing. Like, they get it. Like, they were all, at the end of the day, they're like, hey, this is just, everybody said it. They're like, I was thanking everybody, and they were like, you don't have to thank me. This is just what we do, and it's true. It's just what we do.
And you just mentioned the word that caught my attention. You said drive. What drives you? What is behind? Why are you so? What drives you, Jason?
I mean, part of it is the fact that I'm a big believer in the fact that perception drives performance, and it is easy for me to get to turn and change my perception into the fact that I literally do, for what I know, I've only been in IT and only in the mortgage industry for my entire career. Where I am right now, I can't go any higher, right? Like, I have hit the absolute top of my industry for what I do. And I'm a lucky dude to be able to do that. And so for me, what drives me right now is, for a while, what was driving me was to build the best IT team in the mortgage industry, to have my passion for what I was doing get out to everybody, to understand that the intrinsic value of the work that we do, we should not sit behind computers. Like, we should feel the fact that we're helping consumers, we're helping small businesses, we're actually building all this stuff. And so that was it at first, but then now we already hit that. And so now what drives me is being the best damn IT team in anything. And I want everybody to feel that passion and that drive, because I can see when people get on that bus, dude, we take off, and that drives more passion in me. That gets me more hyped up to get more people on and keep doing it. It's even talking about it, I'm getting kind of amped up.
I was going to say, man, I'm starting to feel that adrenaline flowing again. I mean, that brings me to my next question, because you obviously have a ton of energy, but how do you have it? I mean, this is something we like to ask our guests, our leaders, how do you structure your day? What is it for you? What's the routine, and how does that help set you up for success?
Yeah, I'm really big at waking up early, no matter what. At the same time, every morning, I like to wake up at 4:30 every morning. So if I was out late at dinner, I'm getting up at 4:30. If I was reading and went to sleep at 9 o'clock, I'm up at 4:30. But I get up at 4:30 so I can work out. I want to make sure that I do that if I can every single day. It's really important. It's the time that I get to myself. Also, it's for all the energy that I have, it's at least some kind of release. But then that's it. Then I'm in the office and I'm working. And what I like to spend most of my time doing is talking with people. That's it. Talking with leaders, talking with other IT team members, talking with other business leaders, and then getting that knowledge and applying it really throughout the day. And so, the energy really, it comes from the drive of building what I'm building, or what we're all building. That's where it comes from. It really is the passion.
Wow. And I've met people, man, from all different walks of life that's super successful. And I've had some people that are kind of go with the flow people and just works out for them. But I've had people that are so structured, that are goal setters. They set goals, and that's how they live their life. For you, are you kind of go with the flow guy, or are you one of those goal setting people?
I am definitely a go with the flow guy. Surprisingly, I don't like details. I get a hard time. It gives me diabetes when I somebody tells me to slow down and do. I want to drive. I want to move, but I'm really good at reacting to things. It happens to be a strength that I have. I'm very, very adaptable, and I love actually trying to adapt and move forward. That actually brings me joy. It brings me inner joy to do that. And so if I'm structured every single day, I would have a very hard time getting things done. I don't need to eat at the same time. I don't need to do any of that stuff. But the only thing is, if I get up at the same time every day, having that discipline, the very first thing in the morning, it sets the tone for the rest of my day. Because I know, I will always stick to that no matter what. It's like making your bed every morning. Once you start getting into a habit of it, it creates a sense of order throughout the day.
You said you've only been in mortgages and technology, Jason, during your career, but this is an interesting angle to your story as well. For those that don't know, you back in the day owned a spin studio in Chicago, a big cycling guy. Our clients are all entrepreneurs, right? Whether they own their own business or not. How does that experience, the one you had owning your own business, kind of help you appreciate what every small business owner and entrepreneur out there is going through?
Well, I think the thing is, it's two things. The one thing, and I say this all the time, I tell my team this constantly, not my team, but my leaders. And it's the most important lesson you can have as a leader, at least to me, is so I tend to be an entrepreneur too, but if you treat your team like it's a business, you get a completely different perspective on how to do everything. It's one thing if, Justin, if you came to me one day and said, hey, here's $1 million and I'm going to have you go start a company and, do your best. You have no attachment to that money. I don't want to let you down. I don't want to do things like that, but I'm going to spend it probably a little bit recklessly. I might think that the best thing to do is go out and get this beautiful office space, and that's going to attract, more employees to come want to work with me. But if I sacrifice and I work 3 different jobs and I save up for that $1 million, and now I say, I'm about to open my own business and I'm going to do this for myself. And I treat if I treat everything that happens like it's my business, all I'm looking for is cash flow. And the only way that you can really, truly understand how to get cash flow is customer service. And so you gotta always care about the client. And in IT, it's overlooked all the time, because most of the time people just put their headphones on and they go create and then they're done with it. But when you think about, hey, how am I going to get paid? Like, where is the money coming from for this business? You start treating everybody different, including your team members. Like, you won't tolerate, people that come in and treat your business with disregard and don't care about the team. Like, you actually start cultivating, just like we talked about, the right team members. And that's really the most important thing, is like, if you treat your team like a business every single day, like it is impossible not to be successful.
It's funny you say that, because I remember, sitting having a conversation with Magic Johnson, who's like a big brother to me. And I asked him that. I said, you're so successful in business. I said, have you ever made any mistakes? And he said, yeah, when I first started out, I made it about me and it wasn't about the people. And he said, those were the mistakes I made. He screwed up. Then he made the adjustment and switched on. Now, a quick funny story, a spin time. Listen, I took a spin class in college, right? And Coach Izzo, he used to, people that, listeners, I played basketball at Michigan State, was coached by Hall of Fame Coach Izzo. So he said, we're going to do a spin class for this week. I said, thank God we finally get some days off. Oh, boy, was I wrong. Oh, my God. I would rather run on the track and do that. Spin class was tough. And go ahead.
No. Finish up.
No, it was tough, man. I thought I had an easy breezy spin cycle bike. So great. No, it was a tough workout, but definitely helped me in the long run.
The thing is that, and that's the other part that I actually learned about how to be a leader from the spin studio is that. So that spin studio was mine. I had a bunch of instructors, and they would come in and they would run things too. But I learned the most important thing you can do for another human being is motivate them to do more than they ever thought they possibly could. And so I got all these, Northwestern athletes coming in. I got 35, 45, 55-year-old housewives coming in, and they're all in the same class, and everybody's doing this. And I'm literally running around in a tank top and getting in. Now, I'm not screaming at them. I'm just like, I believe in you. You need to believe in you too. Right. And doing that over and over, and you see people really buy into it. Like, all of a sudden that whole class gets a different type of energy. Like, everybody feels different about what they're doing. That is the biggest thing. Again, like, it's those things that you miss as a leader that you don't realize are important until you get a different perspective on it. But motivating people to do more than they thought that they could is not only good for you, but it's good for them too. It gets them past barriers and raises their bar personally for them too. It's, again, same thing as creating in other people a strong mind. It's the same thing. You can create in people a different type of motivation for themselves to be able to push themselves in everything that they do, personally and professionally.
When you take a spin class, you burn tons of calories. So I have to ask you, as a guy who has lived in Chicago and in Detroit, is it Chicago deep dish? Is it Detroit style? Or is another pizza that is your favorite?
Okay, so I will go on record as saying nothing in sports, nothing in food is better than Detroit. It literally is Detroit everything. So let's start with that. Buddy's Pizza is the best pizza that's ever existed. I would even say Hungry Howie's is better than most of the pizza in Chicago. So
wow. Hey, people get fired up and passionate about their pizza. So you're going on record with it.
You gotta beef up the security when Jay is back in Chicago.
Well, we appreciate you taking time to join us. Oh, by the way, I got one more thing for you. We would be remiss, for those of us watching on video here, we would be remiss if we did not ask you about the 2 posters that are hanging up behind you. You've got one of a tatted up Albert Einstein, which is great. And then the other is Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. Tell us why those 2 pieces of art are hanging up in your office.
So Rocky is just one of my favorite movies of all time. I can watch that 8 million times. I mean, I the whole series outside of Rocky V, which does not exist in my mind ever. It was so awful and completely almost ruined the franchise. Everything else about Rocky is so fantastic. I love the underdog story. I love the things that he talks about. Like, I use it all the time. So that's why I got this. The Albert Einstein is just that like old tatted up guy that still thinks that he's young and cool. And so that's all that it is. I don't think I'm smart or anything. I love Albert Einstein. He like shaved his head over here, kind of like I tried to do. And so it just reminds me that I am not nearly as cool or as young as I thought, as I think that I am.
Now you have it. You got the story, Mateen. I know you were wondering. Jason Bressler, CTO at United Wholesale Mortgage. Thanks so much for joining us. It was great getting to hear your story.
You got it. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.